Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am back, Chamisa announced. Yes, the liar and the conman is back. We cannot deny that Chamisa is a liar and a conman. That is a historic fact. What I find so disappointing about Zimbabweans is how some of us have got a filter memory. We filter out all the things we don't want to know or don't want to hear. And if we hear them, we filter it out, it doesn't sink in. Well, life is not like that. Just because you don't want to hear something or don't want to believe it's true doesn't mean it's not true. This point that Chamisa lied is one that some people have struggled to accept these last 2 years since the 2023 elections. In this particular article, somebody is arguing that Chamisa is back and is going to change Zimbabweans' lives for the better. Is going to offer change, real change. And one is going to ask, Chamisa has been on the political stage for 26 years and counting. He has been a senior member of the MDC, particularly during the GNU of 2008 to 2013. And then following the death of the late Morgan Tsvangirai in 2018, he has been the leader of Zimbabwe's main opposition party the last 8 years. What has he changed? Nothing. He is the one who lied to the people in 2018, telling them that MDC alliance has stringent measures to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. And then that turned out to be a lie. What we are seeing here, and what people must understand, is that this is a vicious cycle, a closed loop of rhetorical nonsense. It starts with Chamisa has been warned that Zanu PF rigs elections. The 2008 elections was the watershed elections, in that it clearly showed beyond all reasonable doubt that Zanu PF rigs elections. They blatantly cheated in the March vote to secure, to reduce MDC's win to a manageable in Parliament, where the MDC had the majority but just managed to get the majority. But more significantly, what whittled down Morgan Tsvangirai's presidential vote from the 73%, according to Mugabe's own fraudulent slang of the tip of the tongue, to 47%, enough to force the runoff. SADC and the AU could not accept Zanu PF's claim that they'd won the presidential runoff because of the wanton violence that followed. Zanu PF was forced to go into the GNU, where the number one task was to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. And at the end of the GNU, it turned out not even one meaningful reform had been implemented. SADC told Morgan Tsvangirai to his face, do not go into the 2013 elections without reforms, because Zanu PF will rig those. So that's where we're starting now. Warning that if you go into the elections without reform, Zanu PF will rig. MDC ignored that warning. They participated in the 2013 elections. The results were as expected. Zanu PF blatantly rigged those elections. Even MDC themselves accepted that the elections of 2013 were rigged. And they made a party resolution in 2014 that they will not participate in future elections without reforms. And guess what happened? They changed. They changed their own minds. They decided they were going to participate in the 2018 elections without reforms. This is a cycle. And when people said, why are you going into those elections without reforms? Chamisa, who had then assumed the presidency, the leadership of the main opposition party in Zimbabwe, is the one who said we have got stringent measures to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. MDC, CCC leaders have made a conscientious decision that they will continue participating in fraud elections while lying to the people that they have what they called winning in rigged election strategies, wires for short. They participated in 2018. When the results came out, Zanu PF blatantly rigged those elections. What does Chamisa say? He claims, we won those elections. Zanu PF stole the elections. Wait a minute. This is what you were talking about the stringent measures to stop Zanu PF rigging. And now you're the one who is acknowledging that they rigged the elections. Election observers came up with reports giving recommendations on reforms and restating that fact that you cannot keep on participating in flawed elections. You'll only be giving Zanu PF legitimacy. What happened? Again, come 2023, Chamisa and company decided they were going to contest those elections without even one reform implemented. And Chamisa himself insisted that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Zanu PF was not going to rig those elections. He even evoked the name of God, that it was God's plan that CCC would win those elections. I'd like to play this video of Chamisa making that claim.
Makorokoto Zimbabwe, nokuti hakuna munhu anomira kana denga raronga plan denga harifoiri plan yamwari haifoiri ini ndatanga kugadzira cabinet. There is no way we are not going to form a new cabinet. There is no way we are not going to have a celebration. There is no way we are not going to have an inauguration. Let's start preparing for our inauguration. Let's start preparing for our celebration.
In short, the people participated in those elections on the understanding that Chamisa had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes, and it was God's plan that CCC will win big. The day after the elections, Chamisa was back again. I've won these elections and Zanu PF has stolen. What are you talking about? You are the one who said you plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes. You are the one who said it was God's plan that CCC would win. And now you're telling us again that Zanu PF defeated all your plans and God's plan to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. This is the vicious cycle we are in. And for some of you who have not listened to his recent interview in which he announced he's coming back, I'd just like to play the first 4 minutes or so of that video where he makes that claim that he's coming back.
Members of the press corps, fellow citizens, I come to you at such a critical moment in the history of our country, possibly after 2 years, having left the dance floor, hoping that somebody else would occupy that dance floor. But I see there's none who has chosen to occupy the dance floor, and the dance floor is vacant. And I've seen it fit that I'm back on the floor to dance for my nation, to dance for the citizens, and to dance for the future. Our nation faces a pivotal moment and a critical juncture in the history of our country. The promise of independence has not yet translated into that rapid, accelerated transformation that we hoped to see. We have not seen transformation. That promise has been hijacked. We have not seen shared prosperity. We have not seen the dignity that had been promised to the citizens. We have not seen the sovereignty that the citizens were promised. We have not seen opportunities for all. But today, Zimbabwe is gripped by a disputed national processes cycle, deepening economic hardships, political uncertainty, social collapse, and moral decay. Government services and supports has been partisanized, meaning to say that things are done according to the partisan lines. We have seen an escalation of discohesion, unfolding instability, heightened national anxiety, and eroded public trust. We have endured decades of crisis, political intolerance, national discohesion. Hatred has become a religion. Hate has been foisted upon the citizens on account of politics and political differences. Zimbabwe continues to suffer from a debilitating legitimacy crisis born out of rigged elections, institutionalized idolatry, sponsored hate, contrived intolerance, endemic corruption, illegal recalls, hijacking of genuine alternative or opposition, and ubiquitous state capture. For Zimbabweans in the diaspora, life has not been easy. The struggle is real. Men who have left.
I'll stop it right there. Chamisa acknowledges that Zimbabwe is a failed state, and one of the reasons why we are a failed state is our failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections. We have had disputed elections. He acknowledges that. But what he doesn't acknowledge is that he himself has been at the back of it. Number one, he failed to implement the democratic reforms, even when he had the golden opportunity to do so. And then number two, he is the one who has been encouraging people to participate in those flawed elections, giving the false assurance that Zanu PF will not rig the elections, only for him to abandon that position and claim that I have won the election, however, Zanu PF was still able to rig. The very thing that he said Zanu PF will not do. He is assuring the nation here that he is back. Yes, he is back, all right. But he's back with the same lie. I can rest assure you that Chamisa is going to participate in 2028 elections without even one token reform implemented. He will be telling people that this time he's going to win. He may even evoke the name of God again. Although I must admit that recently the nation has been spared the hashtag God is in it, the endless verses, biblical verses, which were supposed to reinforce his claim that he is the anointed, the God's anointed one. I hope the nation will be spared those lies and the blasphemy, because God is not in it. God has never been in any of Chamisa's idiotic lies. The tragedy here is that many Zimbabweans have fallen for these lies. Chamisa is back. He is going to come up and claim that this time he has got foolproof winning in rigged election strategies, wires. And many will believe him. The usual suspects will believe him. And they will participate in 2028 elections. Only the day after the election for Chamisa to claim that he has won the elections, but Zanu PF stole the election. The very thing that his so-called foolproof strategies were supposed to stop. I said this is a cycle. It is a cycle. Because as soon as that is done, we are back again to where we started. The issue here is for the people of Zimbabwe to open their eyes and see Chamisa for who he really is. Chamisa is a liar and a conman. And for anyone at all to be conned again and again to participate in these flawed elections and perpetuate the Zanu PF dictatorship is a tragedy. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. We keep going over and over the same thing. We never seem to learn. Chamisa is a conman. He is a liar. That is a historic fact. And one, I believe, the people of Zimbabwe should take seriously. Think about it. Welcome to the program, Ben.
Good day to you and good day to all of yours. When it comes to, I think it's been the past 2-3 days since Chamisa made statements and he made it official and so forth. But one interesting aspect that we have to look at is the reaction of the people. Usually most people take to the internet because that's the easiest, source of getting news and commentary across. And I must say, people are greatly divided. Yes, there are some individuals that would support Chamisa to the high heavens without asking any questions. But a lot of people out there are asking, to say, what is different? Why did you leave? Those questions are still there. You promised to win the 2023 elections. You said there was no way possible Zanu PF could rig. People are demanding answers. And they want to know what is different now. And I must say, that is the first step, to trying to find a democracy. We have to make our leaders answerable and accountable to their actions. And I must say, for me, that is a very positive thing.
Well, one of the things that cannot be denied here, and which some people still struggle to accept, is the reality that Chamisa lied. That is a historic fact. We cannot deny that Chamisa said CCC was going to win the 2023 elections and win big. He was preparing to form the cabinet. And he even evoked the name of God. Why somebody would continue to deny a well-documented historic fact beggars belief. I've got a comment there from one of the listeners, Temba, saying, Mukori, why do you hate Chamisa like that? Are you a Zanu PF supporter or want to be president yourself? I think I've addressed this issue so many times. Why is it that if we say Chamisa lied and he conned the people, why is that being misconstrued as hating Chamisa? I would like to hear from Temba and people like him. Did Chamisa lie? And did he con the people? The answer is yes, he lied. Yes, he conned the people. Why is it that saying the truth is suddenly being considered to be hatred? This is the language that Chamisa himself has been using. Many times when people have asked him to account for what he did, he has turned around and say, oh, there are people who hate me. Are you not a public official? We want a country where leaders are accountable to the people. Why is it that every time somebody asks you to account for what you've done, you want to escape In the case of Chamisa, either he calls it, "Oh, you hate me," or he wants you to hide behind the Bible by claiming that he is God's anointed. Asking Chamisa to account for what he has done is like asking God to account. Chamisa is not God's anointed. Let's get that very clear. When he said that God is in it, this is God's plan, and it turned out that Zanu PF was able to blatantly rig the elections, that is a clear sign that he was not telling the truth. If it was God's plan, God would not have allowed Zanu PF to rig the elections and get away with it. We just can't believe what Chamisa says just because Chamisa says so. This is totally unacceptable. I'd like to play a bit more of the interview that Chamisa gave, and then let Ben comment on it.
We are one nation, one vision, one future, one success, and even in circumstances of failure, one fall. There is no separate destiny for a few and for another. We must understand that we have over 5 million Zimbabweans in the diaspora, and it doesn't matter how good you are, even if you're a blue chip company, because you have a bad government, your goodness is eroded. You are a good citizen, but with a bad leadership, the ultimate is that your gains are negated. So the key agenda for this year is going to be to unite all progressive forces around this new national consensus, built on forgiveness, peace, healing of wounds, and oneness. That is our agenda. That is the basis of an everlasting national reconstruction and reconciliation. Number two, we are going to be reclaiming citizen agency and leadership. Let the citizens lead. Apart from understanding that we need oneness and the collectiveness, the togetherness, the movement together, we need to make sure that we reclaim citizens' role and agency. True transformation begins with you, the citizens. We need to be cultivating an awakened, conscious, and responsible citizenry. Citizens who understand their agents, their role, their responsibility in shaping the destiny of a nation. Real change is not delivered by politicians. Real change is delivered by citizens. It is built and defended and supported by the citizens themselves. We are building that agency.
Ben, do you have any comment to that?
We've been here before. We've heard all this before. You know, one thing people must get is manipulators will not come and tell you something that you don't want to hear. Manipulation is simply telling you what you want to hear. And Chamisa knows that very, very well. And, you know, it goes back even to Temba's, you know, question. If you are a certain individual that will not ask, will not be found questioning any decision just because the leader has said, you are far away from democracy at all, because democracy needs you to challenge, needs you to ask these questions, the hard questions. Here, Chamisa is saying something that, you know, a lot of people out there are saying. We need a united force. But the question is, what is this force uniting for? This is where the big question is. What are we uniting for? And my number one guess is to participate in rigged elections. We've been down that road before. We had the MDC Alliance united. We need to get this right. Chamisa and company are in this here just to participate in elections and get the gravy train seats and the monies that that come with it. It's nothing to do about you and me. Because if it had anything to do about me and you, they would have addressed the problems that we are facing when it comes to elections. They have not even addressed it in 25 years. So what is their purpose? And their name is saying change in it. What change are you bringing? 25 years in, there is no change. I think, it comes down to the point where, we need to start thinking for ourselves, and we need to start asking the questions. Chamisa left. Ask him why he left. And the true answer is you didn't want to be accountable for the claims and the brags that he left on the field. He assured every Zimbabwean that even God, and he knew that the people of Zimbabwe are God-fearing, and he took advantage of that. Because you mentioned God, people are going to follow, only to desert them when they needed you the most. We did what you wanted us to do. What next? Now he comes back without even a single apology. And people like Temba are saying, why do you hate him? It's not hate. He has to apologize. He has to account for his actions.
Well, one of the things that you are saying there is that he wants this to be citizen-driven. Being citizen-driven means you are accountable to the citizens. This is unfortunately a reality that some of our leaders have paid lip service to. People like Chamisa have never been held to account to the people. Here is a clear case. This article was publicized just a few days before the 2023 elections, in which Chamisa himself is quoted as ED has no room for rigging. People believed that. He has never explained to the people, then why is it that ED was able to rig the elections? You acknowledge yourself that ED rigged the elections. And not only ED, SADC and the AU election observers have also said those elections were rigged. And yet you are the one who said there was no room for rigging. If you are serious about being citizen, allowing the citizen to play a meaningful role, then you should respect them. You should explain to the people, why did you say one thing and yet the opposite happened? Being held to account is part and parcel of letting the citizens play a major role in our politics. That is what democracy is all about. The ancient Greeks got it right when they said democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But for democracy to work, those said people must be educated, knowledgeable, objective, and diligent in carrying out their secret duty of holding those in public office to account. I think the people themselves in this case here are the problem. They have never really taken their leaders to task and asked them to account. People like Chamisa are not going to volunteer accountability. They'll pay lip service to it. We want the people to play the major role. And yet, when push comes to shove, they sideline the people. They ignore the people. As I said, Zimbabweans are being taken for a ride. Chamisa is coming back to restart a new cycle. He cannot participate in 2028 with Triple C, the party he abandoned, and he denounced as having been infiltrated by Zanu PF. So he's got to come up with a new party and claim that this is squeaky clean, and claim that this party will win the next elections, even when there's not even one token reform implemented. He will tell the people ZANU PF has no room to rig 2028 elections. The problem with our people is that they will believe him. What we need is to make sure that Chamisa understands and is accountable. Here is a core issue that came up since 2023 elections. He said ZANU PF would not rig the elections. ZANU PF did rig the elections, the 2023 elections. Now he must account for what that statement meant. Was he lying? If so, why was he lying? What are the consequences of his lying? Those are the pertinent questions that the people must ask before we move on.
You know, guys like Chamisa, they like I said, when you're a manipulator, you know how to dodge and jump through, you know, hoops and stuff. The first, I mean, already the first order of business is reconciliation, forgiveness, and you know, he's already closing the doors for questions and answers. That is what he has done. How do you forgive somebody when somebody has not acknowledged what they did wrong? How do we reconcile when we do not know the differences? This is just sheer manipulation, 101. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people like Temba out there that will defend the obvious. Chamisa stood up and promised people that he's even got a cabinet all sorted up in heaven. God is in it. And once God is in it, nothing, unless God failed this time. Now that somebody has decided, no, you're not going to get away with it. You have to be answerable for your actions. You conned the people. You let the people down. And after that day, you did not even bother to come and say, I am sorry. You went and disappeared, waiting for the temperatures to simmer down, and then come back onto the train. And the excuse is nobody was dancing on the dance floor. If that would sit with a lot of people out there, we might as well kiss democracy goodbye, because democracy needs people that hold their leaders to account. You cannot get it half and half. If you want democracy, you have to go by the procedures and the steps and the process of it. And the number one process and step is that all leaders, be it in public office or aspiring, should be accountable. This is why you find even in countries like United States, they do background checks. They do email checks even. Somebody lost, an election because of dubious emails. And then you want somebody that stood up and told you lies to walk scot-free. You see where the difference is there. And that country that held the leader to account is enjoying democracy, one of the most powerful nations in the world. And then Zimbabwe, you can do as you please. And then you ask the question, why are we at the very bottom? This is why we are at the bottom, because our citizens take things for granted. They will say somebody lied. You shouldn't ask the question, or otherwise you are a Zanu PF. You are being paid. And guess what? Zanu PF says the exact same thing. When you ask Zanu PF officials, why did you do this? No, you're a puppet of the West. Mozambique syndrome. No one should be asked any questions. They should just do. Where is the citizen-driven movement when the citizens cannot ask questions without being labeled? And unfortunately, it's not only Temba that does that. There are millions out there that will defend a leader that is wrong. He is not a god. He makes mistakes, and he should be held accountable to those mistakes, because if he gets away with it, he will surely do it again. And I bet you come 2028, we will be driven through another meaningless process and cry the very next day after, and then have us sit down. What is the next step? And so forth, and so forth, and so forth. We have to break the cycle. And the cycle starts by asking for accountability now. You said this and this and this. What happened? People put trust in whatever you were saying and whatever you were doing. What happened? Why did you disappear? They're important questions. It's not hatred. It's important questions.
One of the other points that I've mentioned, besides the issue that Chamisa is a liar and a conman, is the very fact that MDC leaders failed to implement even one token democratic reform when they had the golden opportunity to do so during the GNU. Everything else that has happened after that is insignificant compared to their failure to implement reforms. And this is why it is important for people to understand what the reforms were about and why, by the time the end of the GNU and not even one token reform implemented, the alarm bells in people's minds should have been ringing like church bells. They were not. One of the reasons why, of course, is that the people themselves, as much as some people, particularly the MDC CCC supporters, the Chamisa Chete Brigade, as much as they've been repeating the slogans, Chinja, Chinja, to be quite honest, most of them had no clue what those changes were, much less how they were to be implemented. And this is the reason why, at the end of the GNU, when MDC leaders failed to implement even one reform, those supporters thought nothing of it. It was water off a duck's back. one of the reasons why MDC leaders failed to implement reforms was that they were corrupt. Mugabe bribed them with the trappings of high office. The E-Class Mercedes-Benz limos for all the deputy ministers, the 2 deputy prime ministers, and Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai himself. Then came the generous salaries and allowances for all the members of parliament, senators, deputy ministers, the ministers, the 2 deputy prime ministers, and Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai himself. Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai got the US $4 million mansion in Highlands, etc., etc. For most of us, we thought that was the limit of the bribe. Now it turns out they got even more. The top brass in both the MDC-T and MDC-N got farms and money. Here is a story that broke out just before, a few days before Chamisa made this announcement.
Bhazi rikafira musango, munhu asina kwaari kuenda mubhazi mumu anofara kuti ndo patopumba pake nditori nevamwe vangu pana. Munhu anorwadziwa nekurara musango munhu ane kumba.
Taibadana kumba kwangu.
But amana kumba kugombeza rangu rere. Mana so. But munhu asina imba atete kurara musango. So opposition inomake sure kuti vanhu vaya vawane minda. But may he so rest in peace Tsvangirai. Praise rawo vanga vainaro. Chamisa anaro.
Anaro Chamisa. Ane family.
Kana azoramba. Ndoenda newe.
Riri kupi?
Ane farm.
Ribi.
I know madresse munhu anetsa kuti focha, but anaro. Chakudza off camera.
Okay.
Ane mine.
Ane mine.
Ane makaseo.
Yeah?
Yes. Biti. Ane praza. Hauna kumboona ere picture ya Biti achitenga mombe kuna Temba Mliswa. Dzekuisa kupraza. One of the biggest beef producers in the Matabeleland region, the Washman Ngwe.
Okay.
Yes, ane praza. Anautenga beneficiary by land reform. But what they did is to discourage their people from acquiring my farms. Because why is that munhu akaona something chapiwa nehurumende achapikisa.
Are you for real, Mr. Ganesha?
Nomubvunza Washman Ngwe kuti haasi kuita beef here, producer beef here paprasi. Tonyandanetsa upo ching'ono gore rere. Handiti kuti stand ya upo ching'ono standard ine painogumira. But vakatotaura nehurumende nemasabhuku ikaextendwa because aita got.
What I found interesting in this interview that Chamisa gave to announce his, the launch of his new party is that he did not even comment on any of that story. This has been hanging over MDC leaders' heads, the issue of accountability. Here is a statement saying they were bribed. Some of the Zanu PF cronies during the GNU boasted about it. When they were asked, why is MDC leaders not implementing the reforms? They turned around and boasted. That must be an MDC. This has been at the heart of why MDC leaders have failed to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections, and why they've participated in those flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, knowing fully well that participating will only give Zanu PF legitimacy and perpetuate the people's suffering. And yet, here is somebody who is promising people a fresh start, and yet he cannot address those key issues. This is laughable. This is an insult to every thinking Zimbabwean out there. I repeat, Chamisa is a liar and a conman. His so-called fresh start is nothing more than another excuse to con people to participate in the same flawed elections and repeat the endless cycle that we have seen that is holding back the nation. Participating in flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy and perpetuate the people's suffering by conning them into believing that this time the opposition would win. 45 years of rigged elections, expecting the opposition to win is a long time. And I think the people of Zimbabwe must really wake up now. How long are you going to allow this madness to continue?
If we are thinking of change and we have not laid down the foundation for that process to begin, we are basically just, you know, saying and not doing anything about it. I mean, look, for every election that we have seen in Zimbabwe and people have gone out there and participated, that election has gotten to be marked and a report given for our performance. And each and every time we have been told our elections are flawed and illegal. And you find out that as soon as that is said, the people of Zimbabwe will run and with the report to show the whole entire world what it says. But I mean, the whole world now knows what the Zimbabwean elections are all about. What they are.
Sorry, Ben, we can't hear you. I don't know what has happened with Ben there. We'll return to him as soon as we reestablish the line. If you can hear us, Ben, I think you need to log out and then come back again. Zimbabwe is a failed state. We have said it on this platform many times. And it is true. We are a failed state. And the main reason why we are a failed state is our failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections. We cannot deny that we had the chance to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. We had the golden chance to do so during the GNU. We wasted it. That is a reality that we cannot deny. It's a historic fact. It is a pity that some of the opposition supporters have been so naive, so gullible, that they cannot accept that the opposition leaders have sold out. And the opposition leaders, in turn, have taken full advantage of that. Indeed, as much as some of the Chamisa Chete Brigade members would want to believe that Chamisa is a demigod who can do no wrong, it must be said, Chamisa himself has encouraged that mentality. When he claims that he is God's anointed, that is exactly what he's trying to do to reinforce the mentality that he is a demigod. Here is Chamisa, for those in the habit of refusing to accept historic facts, claiming that he is God's anointed.
Baba vedu vari kumusoro kudenga, ndinokutendai mandipa mukana uno, ndinokutendai nezvamakandipa. Hakusi kungwara Baba kuti munditsvete pachigaro chino, hausi uchenjeri, hausi masimba, hakusi kuona kudarika vamwe. Baba makanditsveta kuva mutungamiriri weboka nokuti itsika yenyu yokutsvaga umwe chete wamunotsveta mberi. Chindisimbisai Baba nokuti ndiri kurwisana nehama dzakaoma moyo. Baba ndisimbisei nokuti ndakatarisana nevakomana vane ukasha vane ropa mumaoko. Lord Jesus, ndibatsirei Baba, ndina chandinopa ruzhinji rwuri pano. Ndinovapa chete mashoko enyu nomuono wenyu. Holy Spirit, come down upon each and every one of us. Mutiendese mberi senyika. Baba ndibatsirei, ndichatungamirira vanhu venyu sokubvuma kwenyu. Handizodeuri ropa, handizouraya, handizokuvadzi. Ndichazviita murudo kudzikinura, nokuti chokwadi chinokunda nhema, nokuti chiedza chinotosora rima, nokuti wakaipa anosudurwa newakanaka. Ndifambiseiwo Baba, handina mabhiza, handina pfuta, handina pfumo, handina pakatwa. Baba ndine rudo rwenyu nevhangeri yenyu. Nyika yenyu idzikinurwe nezita raJesu.
Well, it's one thing claiming that he's God's anointed, but it's another thing to know that he and his friends have actually betrayed the people. They had the chance to implement the democratic reforms to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. They did not implement even one token reform because Mugabe bribed them. Chamisa still has the 2 farms, the car sales, God knows what else. He's promising a fresh start, and yet he keeps those things that he was bribed with. Those who paid him those bribes expect him to do their bidding. And I believe Chamisa will be doing their bidding. He will con the people to participate in flawed elections, lying to them that this time he is going to win, knowing fully well that Zanu PF will rig those elections. Indeed, some of his leaders have since admitted that Chamisa did not even do even the most basic thing during the 2023 elections. Even in countries like UK, America, any of the democratic countries, it is normal practice that the party, the opposing party, will field election agencies just to witness what is going on the day of voting. Chamisa got the money to field the election agents. And yet, Chilton one day here is telling us And we know, and he has admitted it himself, that he did not deploy election agencies at all polling stations. And Charlton Wende is telling us here that he had the money and he pocketed the money. And some of it was used to buy cars and farms. If this is not proof of somebody who is saying one thing and doing the exact opposite, I don't know what is. The people of Zimbabwe have to wake up and accept that Chamisa is a liar and a conman. That cannot be denied. And I think people must finally hold him to account.
We have to agree, we have a problem on our hands. If somebody can come up and say something and deliver very little before they are in power, I can show, we can sure be rest, it will be sure that they will never do anything when they are in power because they now control things. If we can allow Chamisa to stand up and lie to us and get away with it, no questions asked. And if you ask questions, you are, you are a traitor or whatever, we're not going anywhere. In this case, guys like Chamisa and Zanu PF, they're all manipulators. They're just doing their job. It is now for the people to see for themselves what is really playing out here. The evidence is there. These guys are in it for the money and the seats. And it's got nothing to do with you and me and our liberation from this struggle that we are in. We have to change our thoughts and our minds on how we view democracy. Democracy is just not simply saying we got to lay down the foundation for a better Zimbabwe before we think of a better Zimbabwe. The good thing, like I've said, is that after work has been done for us, we've been given the recommendations, the reforms already. There you are. Here are the things that you need to fix. What we need to do is to fix it ourselves. And participating in rigged elections without fixing the process does not make sense. This is why for 25 years, we've been doing the same thing and expecting different results, of which the world does not work like that. So my point is to people like Temba and many others out there that will victimize those that ask for accountability and label those that want accountability from leaders. You are not doing yourself a favor. You're not doing the country a favor. You are dragging us in the mud with you. Because as long as we cannot ask the important questions and demand the answers from it, democracy cannot exist. We have to change our ways. We have to get that accountability. We have to get that power to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. I think, in conclusion, I would like to re-emphasize the point here that 2023 Nelson Chamisa and his colleagues, CCC colleagues, and they were showing there, two of them, participated in those flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process was flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, they will give Zanu PF legitimacy. And even after SADC and the AU election observers had condemned those elections as flawed, those Chamisa co-leaders still went ahead and accepted and took up their gravy train seats. Fazai and Ostalos took up their seats in parliament, as did many others. Some people have been confused when Savango recalled a number of the CCC leaders. What I would like to remind those people is that Savango only came onto the scene after the damage had been done. Those people like Fazai Mayer and Ostalos, when they participated in the flawed elections, when they took up their seats, they are the ones who gave legitimacy to the regime. By the time Savango recalled some of them, the damage was already done. And let me tell you now, many of those who will be joining Chamisa in the new party or new movement, as he wants to call it, he wants to make an issue of the difference between party and movement as if it's a world of difference. It is not. It's just nonsense. Just semantics. MDC stands for Movement for Democratic Change. So you had a movement there. What democratic change did they bring? Nothing. So now we want to be told that we don't want a party anymore. We want a movement, as if to say that makes a difference. It doesn't. But I want to assure the nation that those who are going to join with Chamisa, if their eyes set on participating in 2028 elections, no matter what. Zanu PF knows it. And this is why Zanu PF is confident that they can go ahead and rig 2028 elections, and Chamisa and company will con millions of Zimbabweans to participate in those flawed elections and give Zanu PF legitimacy. And so the damage continues. That is what we are talking about here. This so-called fresh change, fresh start, is just semantics. Chamisa is continuing with the conning, lying to the people and conning them to participate in flawed elections, what he has been doing all along, particularly during the GNU, when Mugabe and Zanu PF bribed them. These individuals are still in Zanu PF's deep pockets. They will never implement any reforms, and yet they will also continue participating in flawed elections giving the impression that they can win rigged elections. Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks?
I have to agree with you. When we are talking of a fresh start, there has to be elements or features that suggest that for sure we are doing something differently and anew. There is nothing. Probably the name of the party that is going to be formed is going to be different, but we are going to find the same individuals, the same antiques in there, and it's the same show. We shouldn't delude ourselves by giving false hope, because we do not want to look at the problem directly. And the problem is that the Zanu PF and the opposition are fine with participating in rigged elections and giving us a meaningless say from it. Because as long as the rigging continues, you voting or not is the same thing. Zanu PF will take power. Triple C, MDC, and Chamisa will get their participation fee and $70,000 cars and whatever comes with their participation. And then the question is, what do you get? Absolutely nothing. Another 5 years of turmoil. So you got to look at this as who is winning and who is losing. And if you are not winning, you should be fighting for yourself to get yourself into a winning position. And the winning position we have been given, and I've said this not just on this program today, but I've said this a lot of times. We have already been given the answers. All we just need is to implement. And then finally, we can get the power back to the people. That is a citizen movement, not what Chamisa is describing, not what Zanu PF is describing. A citizen movement is when the people can hold those in public office and aspiring to account. And they don't want to give us that power. They are fine with it, because once the people have got that power, we can put them in and out of office when we please. So I say to Zimbabweans out there, if we want our power, we are going to say no, with no reforms. There should be no elections. Period. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. I would like to answer this question because I know I've been asked so many times. So what is the way forward? The way forward is very simple. Ideally, we would want 2028 elections to be free, fair, and credible. Unfortunately, it is too late now to implement any reforms. And certainly with Zanu PF controlling parliament, there is no chance of any reforms being implemented. That is a fact. So what can we do? Well, what we can realistically achieve at the moment is to make sure that we do not participate in a flawed electoral process to perpetuate the dictatorship. I know that some people, it took them a while to appreciate that they've got a right to vote. But you have got to accept also that if you are told and you know it, and there is historic evidence that your participation in a flawed process that is so flawed, that is so illegal, will not change anything. All they are doing is giving the process legitimacy. surely you've got to stand back and say, okay, I'm not going to participate and give a process that I know is flawed legitimacy. More so here, when you know the person who is encouraging you to participate is a liar and a conman. You believed his idiotic lies before, and it will be foolish to keep believing those idiotic lies. The solution: do not participate in flawed elections. And you should play your part in educating some of those so-called Chamisa Chete Brigade members to make sure that they too understand. Because as long as Chamisa is confident he can con millions of them to participate, and they participate, the damage is done. We all pay the price. Your duty and my duty going forward is making sure that 2028 people do not participate in flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy. That 2028 people do not fall for Chamisa's idiotic lies that he will win rigged elections. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good night.